right.
Becky, you're next. I'm Becky.
My name is Robert.
Trisha.
Amora,
Maxwell.
Linda.
Sue,
Yarrow.
Robin.
Hi.
Okay, and here we have Linda is on the line now, and we have Faith is on the line now. And yeah,
And you forgot other people.
I said the other people already.
oh,
Yeah, to them. Okay, so we're gonna, Polly's gonna give an invocation, then we'll have a 5-minute silent meditation. Then Polly will give a Dharma talk, and then we'll open it up for Q&A and thoughts and questions and whatever is wanted. At the bottom of the hour, we will stop and go into 45-minute silent meditation for anyone who would like to partake in that dive. So I'm handing it over to Miss Polly.
The deep dive, yeah. Right. So let's all just close our eyes. The way in which we experience reality arising is through opening and closing the eyes, right? So now we're going to go to the inner reality by closing our eyes, and through our inhale, reclaim our inner being, and through our exhale, relax out of the body, allowing everything just to fall away, and have the experience of the sense of yourself as this spacious, awake awareness. I am that. So in this space, we are all exactly the same. This space partakes of freedom and peace and love and connection, and we are all the same there. We are one. And in this time together, we acknowledge that. And so it is. I was going to start off a different way, but the Om reminded me of all of the, am I talking?
Yeah.
Okay. The Om reminded me of all the ways in which sound is primordial and it's, you know, we know in the New Testament it points to, in the beginning was the word or the logos, right? We know that frequency as sound is a powerful element of the creation of realities, and that our frequency is a fundamental to the way our world shows up. It would seem as if it shows up just on its own, right? It's like, how did that happen? But the part that we play in it becomes apparent as we come home to ourselves and start to dissipate or dispel what got put in place that has been the filter or the lens, I often call it, the distortion field through which our world shows up. And then we wonder why it's against us. But the information that got installed that way was our earliest conclusion about ourselves. And that was a self-judgment. And it often goes like, I'm not good enough, or I don't do it right, or there's something wrong with me, or all of the ones that we all know. They're all a kind of version. It's our specific experience that we come up with our version of self-rejection. The frequency of self-rejection emitted into the quantum field then shows up as a world of limitation, even if that world is not apparently limited in the external condition. But it will be experienced by ourselves as a limited, distorted, unfulfilling pattern because I'm not good enough, or what put it in place, what got installed, is so fundamentally self-rejection. And so for some people, the world from the outside, observers, looks like they've got everything, right? The material thing, the what is equated with success in this 3D reality, acquisition and prominence or appreciation, whatever that is, it looks as if that would be the thing that if you received it would create a fulfilling life. But the only thing that will ever create a fulfilling life is waking up to one's own true nature, which has been obfuscated and now projected, and creating a world in which it's very difficult to wake up to our true nature, because what our world shows us is the projection of our self-determined limitation and identity. So back to sound, frequency and sound are synonymous in a certain way. It's according to what equipment you have to pick up the frequency, whether or not it shows up as sound. But when it's emitted into the field as a frequency, the quantum field is the one I am. That's where we just were in our meditation, that field of awake awareness. And the frequency then, this is a very kindergarten example, the frequency entering into that field then arises as a reality, looking like being received, or looking like being rejected, or being experienced as not included. The frequency of the wound entering into the quantum field is the observer in the double slit experiment, where the light wave became a photon because it was observed. Our ability as creator beings is with our observation, but if it's through the lens of a limitation, then that's how the response from the field has to show up. Is this making sense to everybody? Because I can't see faces. Yeah. So this is the intersection where consciousness and content, we have to start to see what has been our contribution to the content of our consciousness, noticing that if you incarnated into this reality, all of us, without exception, came in on a matching frequency to a 3D polarized reality. We came in on a frequency of fear. So when we have the experience in our individual incarnational families of origin, whatever they may be, when we have that experience, we are doing this lifetime's installation of a creating frequency of identity. Now your reality is in the I, the identity of the beholder. So we're seeing through the lens, we're seeing through the glass darkly because it's darkened by our self-rejection. And then the reality that shows up out of that, this is another tricky part here. Because this reality is based in a polarity, you can get the good end of the stick for sometimes a long time. Right? Things are going well. I got this. I know how to run. I know how to play this game in this reality, right? And so it's as if, but underlying that is the frequency of the other end of the stick, which is the opposite. It's a polarization, the opposite, and then that end of the stick comes up. And at that point, you lose the money, you lose the girl or the guy, you lose your position in your milieu, your group. And then it's now it's the need to reclaim what will take you to the other end of the stick as an experience. At an apex point above the stick, if we imagine the stick as the base of the triangle, that's where the polarity is held. The apex is meta to the polarity. So as you can see it just diagrammatically, as we see the geometry of it, at that point, right, there is this, what do I want to call it? Dominion. You're present, not caught in the polarity anymore. To be at that point depends on releasing, resolving, dissipating the idea of your early wounding conclusion. So what we do in all of our groups here and all of the sanghas and the satsangs, what we're doing is we're trying to give access to what does it mean and what does it take and how do I dissolve what I created. It's like some kind of perverse appreciation for our ability to create, even though it's a suffering ego identity caught in fear. Well, I created it. It's mine. It's me. So that kind of the ability to see that points to the power that we have as creator beings, but caught in a miasma of fear and conclusion about ourselves out of something that occurred probably for most everybody, although the memory of it will be after your verbal, maybe after 2. But for many people, we have an experience as an infant when we're not attended to on time, or we feel like we're not going to get fed often enough. And we conclude energetically, we conclude that we're not good enough or we don't matter. So it's installed even pre-verbally. When we're triggered, which is the way that we go about excavating the source material for this crazy reality that we are in the midst of, the way that we go about that is using as early a memory as is available, because it carries the same content. It carries the same conclusion, so it's viable and it works. It works, and so you don't have to remember the very first thing. I suspect, and this could bring up some discussion, but I suspect that the first thing was prior to the incarnation into this reality, this duality, and that first thing was something that occurred in what we would call, although it's not time related because time does not exist at that level, it would what we would call a past life. Yeah. So we come in, we're matching somehow this being that's incarnating is matching a frequency of fear. Otherwise, you don't show up here. We don't show up here. It's a matching frequency to separation and to polarization. So our job is to see what was the error, what was the mistake that created the lens, that created a world in which we feel as if we're not good enough, or that we feel as if we don't have a chance, or we feel as if it's not fair. Some version, because all of our wounds are some version of a victim identity. Anybody want to argue about that?
No.
No. Yeah, so we're here in order to start to wake up out of an identity with a label that we created when something real happened. It's not that it didn't happen. I often say it was unavoidable, but never true. We had an experience, and with our limited incarnational experience, we had an experience that left us feeling as if we don't matter, or we're not good enough, or we'll never make it, or whatever that victim conclusion was. All of them are that. It's always feeling as if you're at the mercy of the out there, whether it's the parents, the siblings, the teacher, or the friends, the bullies that are your friends. So what we're doing here together is to drop out of, to get, and this is the fundamental equation for waking up out of a fear-based ego identity, an ego mind identity, is to see that the awareness is prior to, always present, and without which you would not even know that you're not good enough. Without awareness, we don't even know how screwed up we are. We don't know how limited we are. We don't know how bad it is in the world. Awareness is you. That's who you are. And you have this conclusion, this creation. And with whatever, this is kind of, sometimes it seems to me like, especially those of us who are in response to the possibility of redreaming this reality, it's like it's some kind of laboratory, it's like in come more of the little laboratory animals, and we're all friends together, and we're running around trying to do the maze, right, or whatever. But the opportunity here is to make the shift, because you have everything that's required to make it, which is understanding how it works, how it has worked to create what you don't want. And every once in a while, just enough times to keep you hooked, you get what you do want. Yeah. And that keeps you coming back, right? It's like,
Do you ever slip into fear, Polly, yourself?
no, because when we talk about, I mean, I hesitate to talk about my own experience, although all of you know it well by now. But it's like it's going to be unique to you. It's going to be unique to you how it works, and it may be a gradual thing. For this body mind, it was an event, and when it fell away, it simply hasn't come back.
Wow.
Yeah. So what happens when you wake up to your true nature is the dissolution of the person.
Yeah.
So that person is no longer trying to get something or trying to avoid something. It's present, loving this amazing reality, the creative possibilities, and the fun of not believing you're a victim gives you access to all of it. And we all are lucky enough to live in the beautiful Hawaiian Islands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when the emotion of fear just comes through, you just shut the door on it.
Well, it just doesn't show up. There's
Doesn't
nothing
show
to be afraid of unless you're a person. If you're a person who believes you're not good enough, then there's a reason. Is that something? It's reason to be afraid, because you're not going to measure up, and then there are consequences.
Right.
You see, it's with the identity. It's with the identity that fear comes.
Yeah.
The minute that you're not identified with that, and every one of you in this room and on Satsang, on the Zoom have experiences where you're not identified with the person and you feel the freedom and the spaciousness of the awareness that is your true nature. You do it in meditation if it's working that day. Right? Any time when the thinking mind is not running the show and putting pressure on you, then you're in your true nature. And it's really great to become alert to that so that you move into the awareness of the distinction, because that's helpful.
Very.
Yeah. So if this is a repeat, because there's only one thing that's going on here, repetition abounds, right? But the thing that is creating, the thing that keeps us away from love and caught in fear is our own self-judgment. So it's such an available, it's such an inside job. It's so right here, right now, up to you, you know. Like, but we have, like I forget, it was a minute ago or so that I pointed out that we take great pride and we take satisfaction in creating our own limited fear-based self. So as we start to know, I mean, that's a character. You've lived as a character many lifetimes, but who you are is the awareness. If we wake up in this lifetime, we wake up to our true nature. That's what creates heaven on earth. That's what creates the shift in the collective consciousness that redreams this reality. And that's the radical understanding of what's possible in true nature, in consciousness, right? When you have dropped, and when you do have the experience of not being so held or moved by the fear-based person that you identify with, then you know what it feels like to feel into that open, spacious, true nature. Everybody has that. That's available all the time. If that's not what's going on, you're believing what you think. It's a great opportunity to do Katie's work, if that's where you're held in the thinking. If you're held by a trigger, and we talked about this last week when my son said he didn't like it. He didn't want to be triggered. He didn't think it was gold. But the truth is, what we're wanting is to see through this kind of fractal creation. I call it a distortion field. It's like a house of mirrors at the carnival, where everything is looking like, but I did the right thing. And then it's like whack in the face. Yeah. But I tried so hard, whack. So the person cannot be in heaven. Who you are is already there. I am in heaven. The revelation of myself, my true self, is holy. So the practice is, if you're experiencing something that doesn't feel good, be willing to have that be a trigger. And to look at what you're believing, look at what you're thinking. Because there is nothing in the true nature of who we are and the nature of reality without the distortion of our mind caught in fear. There's nothing that is untoward. There's nothing that is not easy, peaceful, happy. I take great umbrage at people who say the polarity is needed because you don't know what happy is until you experience sadness, and that simply is not true. What this happy is, that is your true nature, is not caught or expressed or defined by the opposite. It's meta to that, and it's your true nature. You don't need an opposite of being sad or unhappy to know what happy is. What you, all of you in this room know it from your own practices. In that moment when you're simply, your mind has disappeared, your heart is open, and it's like amazing grace. Yeah.
So about that, Polly, Eckhart Tolle, he writes in his books that you can build up, first you hold that experience for a few seconds and dissipate, and after you hold for another few seconds, but he said that one moment what's the word, they get, it's like you can hold that for hours, being that real essence with who you are, and the mind can just be used when you need, not all the time.
Right.
That's what you experience.
That's right. And so, but it's when you are first holding it, it's like a kind of reclaiming what's already true for you.
Yeah.
And it can, and you only get to reclaim it for a little cycle, seconds, whatever. But you keep knowing that is more real. Allow yourself to know that that is more real than the suffering. And in that acknowledgement, then it became, what happens in my crude way of talking about it is that it becomes prior to, instead of having the ego fear-based running the show, now it's true nature, awareness, you know, whatever is going on, awareness is there. I think I said it earlier in this time together. You don't get to have a shitty feeling without being aware of it. Awareness is totally neutral, but as awareness, we are freed from the fear-based self-judgment. And that's what changes it. Awareness doesn't have any judgment about whether you should get the guy or get the money or get whatever. It doesn't have anything that it doesn't think anything is better than anything else. It doesn't think. It's the presence. It's the full primordial ground of all being. And knowing yourself as that, then this becomes a party, actually. I think because suffering or being unhappy or feeling, in quotes, what we call depressed, has been such an ongoing experience for most of us, because we were all initially, as we talked about, caught in a fear frequency, had an experience that matched that, and then onward. But because that's been so prevalent, we feel as if it has a kind of foothold. It's as if it has a kind of prerogative in our experience, right? Is that true for all of you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like that's the go-to. But the truth is that what's true is more prevalent, but we haven't, it's like the Truman Show, we haven't gotten to the edge where we pull the fence down, right? And see beyond what the confines of. So being kind to yourself during this process is a part of the process. Doing what I call coming home to being on your own behalf is a part of this process, because with the early self-judgment, we put into place a distortion field in which we feel we have an internalized abuser. That's typically what happens with all of us. In order to be the good girl or the good guy that mommy and daddy expect us to be, we start to be abusing or correcting ourselves before they can, so that we can show up and meet their expectations. So as we come home to ourselves, it's to get in touch. You know, I often, in working with couples, one of the things that what tends to be the female that says this, the woman that says this most often, he just doesn't get me. And I try not to laugh. And I say, you just don't get you. It's because it's when we have ourselves that we're full out connected, and there's no chance that that somebody doesn't get you, right? But it's you first, you know, whatever you're looking for or thinking can be offered out there. You give it to yourself first, and then out there arises as a mirror of who you're being to yourself. And don't use this to criticize yourself, please. We've all been very, very bad to ourselves because we were caught in a polarized distortion field of fear. So let's see what people are thinking about today.
So if you're on Zoom, you can click on the reactions button and raise your hand, and I will spotlight you with Polly if you have a question. And if you're in the room, you can just go ahead and raise your hand and say your question.
Yeah, any topic that anybody is up, it doesn't have to be in keeping with what I've offered ever. Because it's what's up for you guys that matters.
Patricia.
Yeah, so, for me lately, there's a fear that's come up, is the fear of, my dog is sick and losing my dog, or fear of losing someone I love brings up old, losses and abandonments and deaths and so on. But it doesn't seem like it's created to a victim place in me. It feels more like it's an old reaction to the initial trauma of losing my father at very young, who at 3 years old, there was nobody there. And I think somewhere deep down is this, I couldn't handle it, or I'm not, there's some of that in it. But I'm just kind of wondering about looking at that, fear of that grief is going to take me over.
So you want to do the 6 steps?
Sure.
All right. So the trigger is I'm afraid grief will take me over. Is that right? That's the trigger.
Yeah, or I'll lose it, or I won't be able to handle losing
Okay.
the person.
Yeah. Right. The second step is to acknowledge that this experience of fear or grief or fear that you won't be able to handle it, it's about me. Does that make sense to you? This experience is about me. The third step is just name that. What's the feeling? If we could disseminate the feeling out of that description you gave me, what would be the core feeling to all of that? You feel.
Well, I know it gets in my throat, and it's like a very holding back some great distress.
Can you feel it in your throat?
A little bit.
You know what it's like.
Yeah.
That's what the feeling is. Now, just through free association, just consider, when is the earliest time you remember that feeling? It would probably be the same kind of pressure of holding back in your throat, maybe. Just a lot through free association, earlier time.
Yeah, very young, becoming very tough. I remember being very open, cute little open girl, and becoming this real tough.
And something happened that.
Yeah, my father suddenly died, and my world changed.
Right. When that happened, again, just reassociate. What did you conclude that meant about you? You must be what? You're 3 years old, and here, this isn't crazy. Dad's gone.
Oh, yeah, I remember my mother lying on the bed and me thinking I could do something, and to fix her or to bring him back. And I just about all that I remember thinking, being helpless.
Helpless.
And thinking I could, then I pretended he was going to come back, of course, living in that fantasy.
So when that occurred with those different, I can hear different things in your mind of those different facets during that time. When that occurred, what did you believe that it meant about you? I must be what? And it was probably not languaged, but it was an experience. May have been languaged.
Well, because right after that happened, there was nobody there for me. So there's probably the beginning of I'm not important,
Mhm.
or the I don't matter
Right,
part,
right,
because there was nobody,
right.
mother, she wasn't there
No,
either.
no.
So I was pretty much on my own.
Mm. So you had to conclude that you didn't matter because you weren't getting what you needed or what you had even had prior to that. Yeah, I don't matter.
Yeah, I call it the wound if I don't matter.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. When you concluded that carries a frequency with it. No need to figure that out or find out what it is. It carries a frequency with it. And energetically, it's not exactly like it, but it's kind of comparable to installing a program, right? And then it becomes invisible. Because you're going to repress that idea, even if you can say that, even if you've been able to say it for 30 years in therapy. I concluded that I don't matter, and I know that's my childhood wound. But if you've never gone there with this work and seen what happens, then it's just been information. What we want to do today is to go there and see that got installed. And from that I don't matter frequency, through that lens, an entire world showed up. And so that you have had many, I say this with always to be corrected if it's not true, but I suspect there've been many incidences in your life, whether it's relationally or in your work or whatever, where even if it's not spoken out loud, you have the experience of I don't matter.
Every day.
That's how powerful we are.
No, I see it. I mean, I've
You've seen it before.
oh, yeah. of course.
Yeah.
Someone doesn't come on time. Oh,
Right.
but I see it and it doesn't really impact me. It's just almost,
Well, wouldn't you rather it not be there?
oh, yeah.
Okay, let's go. Yeah, so what we do now is, this is not therapy. This is an alchemy that comes with forgiveness. So it's like right now we have pulled out the what would it be? A thumb drive or something that got installed with I don't matter. We've pulled that out and we're looking at that, right? And we can, with the bright light of awareness, that's your consciousness, our consciousness, one consciousness that we all share. And that bright light of awareness is the possibility of the alchemy of forgiveness. I forgive myself for ever having believed I don't matter. And after that, to restate, I know who I am. I am the space in which realities arise. I am the awake awareness, having an incarnated experience, right? Your true nature is the awake awareness, and forgiveness is alchemy. And it's like bringing a moldy shoe or a towel or something into bright sunlight. The bright sunlight of awareness shining on an unavoidable I don't matter will dispel it. And it may end up that you do it many times, because these installations come with us lifetime after lifetime. So I recommend that process to you. Do you have the 6 steps, a copy of it?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Does everybody in this room have a copy of the 6 steps?
Yes.
Does everybody on Zoom have a copy of the 6 steps? I can't see.
We can't, most of them don't have their videos on.
Okay.
You can put it in chat if you need it.
And the next part is, please use it. Please, at least have enough of love for yourself and for the world that we will redream together as we clear out these low frequency wounds. The world changes. Everyone in here has had an experience of something shifting in their consciousness and then their world changing. Mhm. Coming to be on one's own behalf is a turning, because it basically, there's no place to go into. There's nothing but a projection going on. So when you turn away from yourself, you're now just your attention particles with which you create your reality are magnetized into external conditions. The energy of consciousness is attention. What are you doing with your attention? Where is it going? What are you believing? What does that feel like? Come home to yourself. Be kind to yourself. That's the direction of dropping out of the frequency of fear. The reason we're all caught up in fear is because we abandoned ourselves. It was unavoidable that that happened, but we're here to move through that and to recreate heaven on earth. Are we?
Well, I have a question, going back to Patricia. Like, because I know Yarrow really has this too with animals, like something really deep happens
Right.
with animals and their deaths. It's like,
Yeah.
so I'm just trying to put together the I don't matter and the grief, the overwhelm of grief.
Mhm.
So maybe I'm being too mental with it, but I'm just trying to
No, that's, yeah.
hold those.
Well, when we talk about death, I have a kind of a perverse clip line that I use. You're as dead now as you'll ever be. And so are your animals. We have the incarnational possibility, and we take that and we are in what this looks like, and we are with them. Right? We're with them. We may have had a past lifetime when we were one of them. I don't even know. I don't know. Oh, but the larger picture that frees our hearts and frees us into true love is the realization that you've never been born and you're never going to die. And that's true of your pets too. And the dolphins and the conscious beings that are populating this planet, so that something can hold together until some of us can wake up. So it's like to trust it. When you have a dream at night and it may not be lucid, but it's really vivid, and you wake up and the next morning it's sitting on the side of the bed, you don't cry because the main character in your dream is no longer with you. Yeah. So we will miss that. We will miss that incarnational vehicle. Absolutely. But in terms of this one, are the ones that we are honored to have with us, to receive the gift and the honoring that they bestow, and to appreciate that, and to be available for them when they move into a non-body located reality. It's just a frequency shift. That's all that it is.
I like that non-body located reality.
I just made that up. Well, that's what we do every night when we dream, right? We have a non-body located reality. There's a character in there that's supposedly us or whatever. It's such a great analogy. I believe that the reason that we dream is so that we get it. So that we get that this is what we would call a waking dream, right? But it's no different from a nighttime dream. And you can create a cast of 2 or 3 close, intimate friends are a cast of 10,000 if you've got that many, if you're an influencer on Snapchat or whatever those things are called. I mean, you can play it at any way you want to. The most important thing is, who are you? That's it. And who is this precious being that you have and that you have had for whatever cycle? Like, fall into love with what is.
So just following this still.
Yes,
So we have a 3-year-old who loses her father, who concludes, I'm not important.
right,
That nobody's there, rightly concludes in that
right,
moment,
exactly,
in the context,
right,
I'm not important. Nobody's there for me.
right.
It's the conclusion that is the creator of everything that happens after that.
Yeah, right.
And
It's through a lens darkly. That's the darkening of the lens.
so the healing of the you talk about sunlight on mold, the
Mhm.
disappearance of
Mhm.
that nightmare, that
Mhm.
lens is the, I mean, I know this, I'm just saying
I
it
know,
out loud,
it's great. It's great.
is the forgiveness of that conclusion.
Right. To see that it was that was unavoidable for that 3-year-old. She did the best she could, and she has from then on. But she's been living in what I call a miasma or distortion field of that conclusion. That's how powerful we are. If we believe it, we're going to create it. If you believe that you will never have whatever it is that you're thinking would make all the difference, and you're believing that you'll never have it, then it's like, it's a done deal. And you may even get it in order to impact you with a reality that you can then lose it. It's so, yeah. So it's seeing that it's not true. Is that Linda?
What one thing that I'm using a lot from our talks and when I have this kind of triggers is like, it doesn't mean anything about me. It's
Right.
not personal. Life is not personal. If my dad is sick or the pet die or things like it is, like I'm dealing with that situation with my dad. Being so far away from him and know that he can go any moment, even though he's not having any appears. But that's the condition of life.
Right.
And not is granted here. And also one thing that I was thinking is the fact that he's died or something happened doesn't mean anything about me. So I can stay in the peace that I am because it's just life happening. It's nothing, anything about me.
Right. That's the first step towards the ability to have what we call detachment. It's not emotional detachment. It's actually the possibility of actually connecting, because you're not connecting through a fear-based lack of self-regard, which is what creates codependency and overreaching involvement with others, apparent others. Yeah, so that there's a way in which it's not about you, and it's your reality, and the way that you handle it is through the ability to have that detachment. And from there, I always say it's like when you're coming from that place of not being pulled in and feeling wrong or victimized or whatever, when you're from that place of detachment, then it's like you're like an orchestra conductor. You know, you're like directing and you're moving and you're offering and you're receiving, and everything moves harmonically from that place. If you're enmeshed in, caught by the fear and the fear of loss, the heartbreak of believing that there's such a thing as death, if you're caught there, then you are at the same frequency of fear that's creating every other difficulty in your life. It just doesn't serve. I mean, the powerful possibility of actually being together with somebody is not to become enmeshed, is not to collapse into, you know.
Okay, I'm still back here.
Yeah, you're
sharing the
back.
talk.
Thank God.
So because I think it's really important.
It is. agree.
So let's say it's healed. Let's say I do this, Patricia and I do the 6 steps on the dog, right? We do the 6 steps on the suffer, on the
Right.
conclusion,
Mhm,
whatever the story is.
mhm.
And then our precious dog is dying.
Mhm.
Without that conclusion, just kind of like Katie work in a way, like
Mhm.
without that conclusion, then I'm not in relationship to the conclusion, the fear-based conclusion as the dog is dying.
Right,
I'm in relationship, I'm, what you're talking about is that nothing between me and the dog.
that's right. You're one. Without self-judgment and without fear and our earliest self-conclusion, we are one with everything. And it's like what the love that it's I think of the love as being obvious just by what we call, but how close you are. What is that word I'm thinking
Attach it.
of?
Proximity.
Proximity, yeah, that's where, yeah. What the appropriate expression of love is just by proximity, right? You've made like Robert and Linda have chosen to be wedded, married, and that proximity has a certain expression of love. But the love that we have, it gets expressed. You know, I have 6 grandchildren. I don't see them very often. But the proximity then would be an opportunity to express more specifically the connection and the love. But you know, the everything's in place. There's no separation. Only separation occurs out of fear in our own mind. I don't think I answered your question.
So I'm trying, okay, I'm looking at the time and I'm talking. So I'm taking this back to me for a second and it's
Yeah.
gonna swing back to you. So I've been in a grapple with someone and you made it really clear, thank you, that I was in relationship to my wound, not the person. So I've been watching that and I've been seeing anyone I have any issue with, I'm actually in relationship with
Right.
my wound.
That's right.
It's incredible to see that.
It's
It's so
amazing. Yeah.
humbling.
Depressing.
It's not
It's so
depressing at all.
powerful.
No.
It's the opposite of depressing. It's like, oh my gosh. I've got this story between me and the
Right.
oneness,
Yeah.
really.
Exactly.
So
It's
I'm-
yourself.
I'm
You've got the
just-
story between yourself and yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for that clarification. So I'm just thinking there's something similar because, an animal dying is a big deal.
Mhm,
It's like having your child die, really,
mhm.
especially for people who don't have kids. It's a big deal in the story,
And the story
in the story. It's a big
of
deal
separation.
in the story of separation.
Delusion on the Maya.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't want to get too like woo out here. I just want to say, like, in a real
Right.
emotional place, there's a real grab with
Yeah.
that. So I'm just trying to look at, what is in the way of the real oneness there, of that being with that process. Like,
What was in the way of your oneness with that person you just described?
yeah, my wound.
Yeah, that's what's still in the way. If any frequency of being a victim, which every wound is some version of being a victim, then that frequency, now how, your beloved pet is dying.
But is there no true grief?
Well, there's certainly the opportunity, you can allow the body to do whatever it does, whether it's weeping or dancing or sitting or celebrating its life. You can do everything, right? But if you believe that there's a loss, then you're going to be caught up in suffering, basically, and being not important and not mattering. You're back
So
to
if
your
I
own-
mattered, the animal wouldn't die.
That's right, that's right. Why me? That's
Yeah.
the victim's
The
question.
loss infers that it's about me and not about
That's right,
what's going on.
that's right. Yeah,
I'm losing something.
right,
As opposed to
yeah,
this is- yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
You know, Polly, I love the image of the orchestra leader,
Yeah,
and everybody in the orchestra could be your thoughts and your emotions, and you're kind of on this pedestal podium above it all, what you want, you know, it's kind of a good image to get, that you're just not really in control. I mean, you are in control,
Mhm.
but you're managing the energy.
Yeah, there's a difference between dominating and dominion.
Yeah.
Dominion is connection with, to evoke whatever's possible between you and me. Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool.
Okay, it's 3:30 here. Let's just remember that there's a difference between dominating and dominion. I'm gonna remember that because I need to hear that. Thank you so much, Polly.
Thank everybody for being here. It's important that we do this together.
I want to say hello to my daughter Emily, who's on screen here. Very fun to
Yes,
see her.
definitely, Emily.
In still form.
Oh, beautiful.
And Kim is here and Gwen is here. So we're gonna take a minute break here to settle, and if you're gonna leave, that's fine. And those of you who want to do the meditation, you're welcome to make yourself at home here, lay on the floor, whatever would be comfortable at home as well. And we're going to take a deep dive. Please think about or consider giving Polly a Donna for her time and to support her on her path. And we will meet again next week.
And it's meditation time. After you lay down in the middle of the room, you're back and fall asleep. Meditate, okay? It's Yorkie, yes, it's Yorkie.
Yeah, that's.
Appropriately named yoga.
Oh, she works on the schedule.
He's like, six lives really. You want to pat my belly? You never on my belly? You want to go on my belly?
That's the first time I've seen my daughter in 2 weeks, so thank you for pulling her in.
That was great. Thank you.
I just sent her the link.
Glad you mentioned it.
Yeah. Special.
Yes.
You stay for meditation.
Yeah.
You listen to that.
All righty.
Lily was supposed to come. I hope she's okay.
I hope she never forgot.
I texted her like an hour ago.
I'm gonna start I'm gonna start the clock in 30 seconds.
Dun, 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 dun.
All right, my dears.
No jeopardy.
Just have this conversation.
Yo,
Oh, God, you ready?